This is the Marimba Lumina. The Lumina is a mallet synthesizer based on 4-mallet technique. It has a built-in MIDI sound card that we're controlling with the normal 500 or some odd Yamaha MIDI sounds, General MIDI, but it also has a gestural controller attached that is very sensitive to the different types of mallet strokes we have. Because when you're controlling something like a synthesizer, we have many, many different kinds of sounds. We want to have many different ways to play that sound. Which, what, where, and how is the way I like to think about it. Which mallet you use, what you strike, where you strike, and how you strike. Because different sounds require different kinds of control. For instance, marimba samples are a snap to whack like that. But if you're controlling a vibraphone or a piano, you want to use different gestures that we're already used to using in these mallets to control those kinds of sounds. A vibraphone obviously wants a sustaining pedal. But once you're sustaining these sounds, you want to be able to dampen them with soft mallet strokes as well. So sometimes a stroke means to turn a note off, not to turn it on. And sometimes a stroke also means to both turn it on and turn it off at the same time, dead strokes. So that's the repertoire of vibraphone gestures that we can respond to. Now, for playing a piano, the technique is exactly the opposite of what we would do with a vibraphone. When we go down, we want the note to go on, and up turns it off. So that's a pianistic technique, but why do that with 4 stilts when you could have 10 little Indians and play piano for real? Well, because on a real piano, once you've touched the keys, that's it. On a marimba controller, we have the vertical position along the bar, and we can do this. We can slide. And we can slide independently by mallet. I can slide those down and still play the green mallet in key. And I can even take 2 notes on the same bar and have them slug it out one against the other. Now that's pitch bend, but there are 127 controllers in the general MIDI spec. So what if we attached the sliding motion to, say, volume on the vocal channel? Now I could control the inner voices, crossfade them to the outer voices, bring them back up again. So it's like having a chromatic keyboard of sliders, of mixer sliders. So that's another way to use mallet gestures to control MIDI. Now, in the piano motion, we got down to turn on and up to go off. So we're recognizing those gestures independently. We can use those same gestures to a completely different musical effect with a different sound. There's marimba. Here's what appears to be a marimba and bells layer, but it's not. The downstrokes are triggering the marimba, and the upstrokes are triggering the Glock, or the bells. So you can do things like so you can control your layering by how you play. Now, one of the simplest things you can do with the Marimba Lumina is assign a different sound to each mallet. And that's because the mallets are recognized as independent stimuli. For instance, here we have the red mallet, the yellow mallet, the green mallet, and the blue mallet. What's going on is we've got an array of radio antennas beneath the surface of this instrument. Actually, there's a pair of antennas, 2 on every bar. And each of these mallets has a passive coil in it with a different number of windings. So they respond or resonate at different radio frequencies, and that's how we can tell the difference between the red, the yellow, the green, and the blue. This instrument has the ability to put small sequences on a stimuli. For instance, here I've divided the instrument up into little groups of 4 bars each that are illuminated. The ones that aren't lit are muted for the purposes of this particular program. And I've deconstructed Frere Jacques into its 4 phrases, and this first bar steps through those 4 notes, no matter which mallet I use. The second bar has, the third bar has, and the fourth. This collection of 4 bars, same deconstruction, different channel, different sound. And here we have yet another channel, and one more. So that's one way to assign significance to what you're playing. Yet another way to deconstruct Frere Jacques is to assign those 4 phrases to the mallets themselves. So here, the red mallet has the first phrase, and it doesn't matter what bar I play. The yellow mallet has the second phrase, the green the third, and the blue. So I can play the entire round myself. Okay, that's another way to use mallet technique to control your layering in a very real dynamic fashion. Finally, this instrument can solve a problem that controllers have had for a long time, where you take something that is essentially a monophonic sound, say a flute, but when you try to play it fast, it blurs. But we want to be able to play the chords at the same time, because monophonic sound with a polyphonic controller creates these performance problems. One solution is to just select a mono performance mode, but then you can't play chords. Another solution is to split the keyboard. So you've got nice monophonic sound up here, no chords. You've got polyphonic channels down here, but you get that blurred monophonic sound. So on a constrained instrument like a mallet keyboard, where you have a minimum number of notes to begin with, to slice it in half once again is kind of like being a double amputee, and you lose somewhat on both ends. Another solution is to use software to recognize when a note is played singularly by itself as a melodic line, or in combination with other notes, 2, 3, or 4, to perform a chord. And when you do that, you can send the monos, the melodic lines, to one channel, and you can send the chords to another channel, which can be polyphonic. So that's another very nice way to layer your playing based on how you apply your technique. A classical problem that you encounter when playing vibes. So you stomp down on the pedal, and then you start to play a run, and you've occluded your original harmony. Opposite way to play it, you play the chord, then you start mallet dampening to get your line, but now you've clobbered your original chord in another way. But if you use this monophonic polyphonic split, you can play the chords to one vibes, the lines to another vibe, and get that nice clear articulation in much the same way a pianist uses his left hand and then his right hand. Now there's no reason why you're constrained to do this with a vibraphone sound. Here's a sort of a gigging pianist's setup where I can play my chords, and my line goes to a similar piano, but it's monophonic. I can make the distinction even clearer if I use the piano sound for the chords and a guitar sound for the line. So now there's division on how you play. You can also go back to the layer selection assigned to mallets. So I can play a vibraphone on my top mallet and my guitar on the bottom. There are many, many different ways to split the sounds on the Marimba Lumina. There are also sorts of cybernetic assists to your playing. Here's one where we have chords assigned to these pads. And of course we can roll and do the standard pan sounds. But when you get really tired of rolling, we also have the ability to kind of put it on one mallet and just run free. Which way, now you can play textures that are not normally associated with live mallets. And you can mix it. Here's another setting that's a little bit fantastic. Okay, so you can combine all of these features and build some very interesting settings for familiar pieces. Here's a drum map, some bass line, which I can transpose, add some drums and piano chords. So that's one setting. And we can also go the DJ route. And it's really nice to be able to balance your drum lines without having to turn back and go to your rack by building this kind of control right into the instrument. That's yet another setting that combines scratching on the bars. So the Lumina can go in all kinds of directions depending on the way you want to play it. Any questions?